Ugh, it's so sunny today. Unusual. So this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. And this is Tristan. He's down there. He's a Corgi. And this is an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And today we're doing a quick episode because I have to get back to work on my animal connection cards. I really need to get them wrapped up in the next 2 days so that they will be available for Christmas shopping. And we also are going to the Equine Film Festival next weekend. So we're pretty busy this week, right, Tristan? Another trip to New York. And today I want to talk about the Equine Affaire. Here is their brochure this year. It's a huge horse expo held across the country in Springfield, Mass, in my area, in Ohio, and I believe there's one in California. And it's one of those huge events where there's buildings and buildings of vendors with things you can buy, and then there's a huge arena, the main arena, where they have a presenter, and he's working with horses usually, or she, and then we have a smaller arena where they usually have the dressage horses, but not always. And the jumping is usually in the main arena. And then there's a small arena for demos like acupuncture and body work for horses. And then there's another smaller arena where they put some exhibitors that are not riding and jumping so that they're in a smaller area. And that has, that ring is a little spooky for horses because they're right next to people and exhibitors and the traffic and the doors opening and closing. So that one's an interesting one to work in, and that's where they often put Linda Tellington when I was there with her. So I went to the Equine Affaire Friday with my friend Esther, and she is looking for a saddle. Of course, as much as it seems like that would be a good place to look for a saddle, it actually isn't. There are very few saddle vendors there. What you can do there is sit in a bunch of saddles and decide what you are not looking for. And then have just more of a feel of what you do want from being there. So that's somewhat useful. You can get really good deals on winter blankets, especially if you buy them in bulk. And that is something my sister always did when she was there. And she had lots of different size horses, so she could just get whatever was in the bargain bin and it would fit somebody. So that's one of the best things about being there. But then you've got to carry them everywhere. And every exhibitor this year, every booth had piles of bags waiting for people to pick up their stuff because they just didn't want to carry it. And it's not nearly as crowded as it used to be 10 years ago. I think after the economy dropped back in 2008, it's been a little trouble at these kinds of events. And people who had 2 or 3 horses now have 1. And, you know, how many blankets do you need to buy for your horse? I mean, people I know are still using blankets from a horse they had for 20 years on a horse they've now had for 10 years. So blankets, if they're made well, don't wear out that fast. But it's a fun time to connect with other horse people and go to some events. So my friend and I went to see a guy that was doing a demonstration of groundwork for dressage, which turned out to be long lining, which I am a huge proponent of. I just love long lining. And if you've read my book, Dances of the Heart, Connecting with Animals, you know that lunging is not always a good idea. Rarely is lunging something you want to do with your horse. And so many people think that's really important. But guess what? It's not. Long lining is so much better for the horse. They get such a better education. It's better for you. They can stay in balance. What's the point of having your horse tear around the ring out of balance and possibly injuring himself, slipping on the footing in most arenas these days? I mean, it's just not a good idea. And so this guy, Vitor da Silva, who's a friend of mine's instructor, and I would be working with him if I was riding today, he did a great demo, and he even made, as my friend pointed out, an interesting comment, which is, if I don't feel like riding one day, then this is what I do. And if I'm having a particular training issue, this is what I do. And so, like me, long lining can be an important part of working with your horse. I have used long lining for years. I really, frankly, don't believe you should be riding if you don't learn to long line. It's not that hard to do. We teach it at lots and lots of our T-Touch trainings, especially if they're more than a day or two long. And you can just do so much to help your horse with long lining. And it's safer than people tend to think if you don't walk directly behind the horse. And I have worked with some really difficult horses and been much safer long lining than I would have been on them. And it's a great way to train for dressage. And I think it was a bit of an eye-opener for my friend. I don't think, although, we long lined all of her horses, and she's a great driving person, I don't think she really appreciated the subtleties of that until she was watching this fellow do this with a horse who had never been long lined before. So that was good to see. And then we moseyed over to see a little bit of an acupuncture talk. And of course, we're all very familiar with that, but it was great to connect with the audience members there who had questions about small animals as well. And my friend Joyce Harmon, who's a vet from Virginia, was doing the talk, so it was nice to see her. And then we went and talked to my friend Wendy Murdoch. Interestingly, at my very first T-Touch class in like 1984, Wendy Murdoch was there, Alexandra Curlin was there, Bonnie Reynolds and Dawn were there, who have gone on to be great animal communicators and run a huge, great, wonderful rescue center in New York State for livestock. And Peggy Cummings was at that training. And we just had so many people that were going to become prominent in the horse world at that training. It was really life-changing for all of us. And to find that commonality of centered riding and Tellington work just really brought us all together with like-minded people and a good way. I know, Tristan, you want to stand on that arm, but you don't want to stay there. There you go. Like-minded people and a system of training that worked for all of us. Oh, I can't read what this person is saying. Hello? Oh, Tristan. Tristan is Trystan. Tristan. So anyway, yeah, Tristan's wearing his fancy bow today because we needed it. And then after that, we talked to Wendy Murdoch in her booth for a while. And she has, like me, gone on to study biomechanics and become very interested from her background. She was a top centered riding instructor. From her background in that area to really look at the mechanics of riding. And she had a pretty significant riding accident just before I knew her that has really changed her experience of riding. And it's actually helped her a lot. Like all the bad things that happen to us, they're lessons that we can use to really enrich our lives. And Wendy used that information about learning to ride again and issues in her body to help her understand what people go through learning to ride if they aren't young and spry and nimble, and if you aren't flexible, and to really look at how saddles fit, how shoeing plays into it, and how limitations in your own body might be addressed. So she has a curved piece of plastic that she has now that's from martial arts training, and it's at the same bend as the Fabinucci harmonics, which I've talked about in my talks about tuning forks. So I was intrigued by this thing, and it actually is a really good physical therapy tool. I think I could sell a lot of them to PTs across the country if I wanted to put time into it. And it just so gently was encouraging me to use muscles in my shoulders that are injured and weak and broken in a way that I could actually get a lot of benefit from it. And it's just a really simple thing that you just play with. And it reminded me of hula hooping because it's a stiffish thing, and you've got a connection between your malleable body and that, and it really shows you where your limitations are. And thankfully, I had absolutely no stiffness and soreness in my shoulders after using this for 10, 15 minutes a couple of times that day. So I think it's a really good thing to re-educate a person about proper body use. And a lot of what Wendy is doing these days is about proprioception and getting, she's a Feldenkrais practitioner as well, getting gentle feedback into your body about how it could and should function based on what it might be doing now due to injury, age, whatever. And so she also has these foam cushions, which I've been using, called Surefoot, where you can stand on them, and I use them with dogs. And because of the kind of feedback it gives up through your paws or your feet if you're a person, it really just helps you readjust your whole alignment in your spine. And Wendy, as I said, loves to do research, and she's still working on that. So anyway, it's she's just really a forward thinker, and it's always so great to see her. And she asked me to write some of the stories of my Surefoot experiences with the dogs in my practice. And they are really helpful for balance, for senior pets, for dogs with any kind of neurologic problem, Lyme, SM, DM. They are really useful. And Esther, who was with me, had recently sprained her ankle like 2 days before, and she stood on the Surefoot pads for a couple of minutes while we were in the booth. And it really helped realign her body because she was developing all these compensations and sore spots in her spine, trying not to use that foot too much. And so the Surefoot allowed her foot to kind of reorient it, because when you have an issue in your foot, you have a strain pattern that your foot's going to keep following. And until you get some proprioceptive feedback from either physical therapy, manual therapy, or something like standing on these blocks or Feldenkrais work, you're just going to keep staying in that dysfunctional pattern. You won't explore the useful pattern that may be functional underneath where your injury was 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago. So that was a great experience. But sadly, we were noticing that the Equine Affaire is less crowded than it used to be, which is actually better. And then the other interesting thing is a lot of our favorite booths have gone away. And of course, the Equine Affaire was celebrating its 20th year this year. And I think I've been to lots of them up until the last 5 years when I don't actually have a horse anymore. And it's like this sweater came from a booth there. It's got little soft bay horses galloping around it with little horseshoes on it. It's like such a great horse sweater, and it's super warm. The booth that sold these sweaters and many, many articles of clothing with horses on them, no longer there. And it was a huge, like 4-booth thing. So expensive to have a booth at these expos, and I don't blame these people for not coming back. And I couldn't find the essential oil booth where I wanted to talk with the person I work with. And we also, she had bought some sweaters for her daughters a couple of years ago. That booth was no longer there, and they no longer had the sweaters. And there was another booth that my Corgi fans will love, where they had corgis and horses. All gone. No corgis, no horses, no lovely little things that this woman used to have. And she was older, and we had a bit of a joke. Back when my niece was like 7 or 8, she's about 23 now, we saw this woman's trailer in the parking lot where she shipped, as many horse people do when you're at these expos. She was shipping her stuff in her trailer, her horse trailer, gooseneck horse trailer, which had living quarters in it and all that. And she had corgis and Morgans, so we made jokes about her being the Corga Morgan lady. And I saw her at the Morgan show a few times, and my niece used to say, "Oh, Aunt Sally, you should buy all her stuff or work with her because you're a Corga Morgan person." So I think that woman has retired, and it's a tough thing to be sitting in these booths all day under those lights and with not the greatest food. So I can't blame anyone for retiring, but boy, it sure was fun when we used to go. When my sister was up here and Linda Tellington was there. And, there's also a seminar room that runs continuously with like 1-hour PowerPoint presentations. And I've thought about doing a presentation there again, but it's so much work. And I don't have that huge amount of horse clients all around New England. I pretty much stay within an hour and a half of my town. And people come to this expo from up and down the East Coast. Like lots of people make trips from down where my sister is in South Jersey and Philadelphia. And it's a great facility, and there's great buildings around to stay in, and there's lots of restaurants in Springfield. So it was a really good time. And I'm a bit nostalgic about the Equine Affaire at this point. And there were fewer Corgi things there this year. Actually, there's nothing. I didn't buy any Corgi things. But there was a man that had antique paintings in his booth of horses and etchings, and he had quite a few dachshunds and horses and terriers and some spaniels, but he did not have any corgis. So that was our trip to the Equine Affaire, and it was kind of fun. I saw a lot of my old clients. And that's all I have to say today. We are gearing up to work with Brian today and find 52 fabulous pictures to put on my cards. I wanted to put the photograph in a heart shape, but that's a tough shape for most pictures. Pictures are square, or they're fatter at the top than at the bottom. And I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do this heart shape thing. I might have to do something like a circle with the picture in it and then a big heart around the circle. I'm not sure. but to have the picture be heart-shaped, that might not work out. And it's so sunny in here today, unusually so. And I have to go run down the street and take a bunch of pictures of Coco doing things because we can't have every card be with corgis. So anyway, I will see you guys on Tuesday and Thursday, and then I'm off to the Equus Film Festival on Friday. So those lives will have to be later in the day, and it might be raining in New York, and I'm not sure where my car's going, and I'm not 100% convinced that my reservation went through on the Airbnb, so it's going to be a stressful time. But fun, and we'll see some great films. I was researching the other day one of the films I had seen there last year. It's a British film. Oh my God, it's so good. Something Island, and it's about this wonderful woman. What is her first name? Emma Massengale, Gale, who trains Connemara's without bridles or saddles or ropes, and she does Roman riding and lots of formation riding with groups of 6 and 12 horses lined up, and just her standing or riding on one. She's an amazing woman. There's lots of stuff about her on YouTube that you can look up. So I saw the great movie about her experience taking some wild ponies with her to an island in Ireland, and 4 of her own ponies, and then using those 4 ponies to help her train the 2 new ponies. And she stayed there a month, really Spartan conditions, cold, eating the fish that she caught herself, and a barrel of rice. And boy, she had some massive horse injuries a few years before this, so now I'm even more filled with awe, although she's only about 33. But that was a great experience seeing that film last year. So I'm hoping this year I'll find some other amazing films about trainers and people who love horses in a really deep and kind way. So nothing much about corgis today, right, Tristan? He says, oh my God, it's so sunny, I have to hide. So thanks for joining us today. We'll be back in a couple of days. Where's our music, Tristan? The sun is starting to move again. We have to back up. We're in the dining room instead of the kitchen, so it's not that easy to pull curtains over these windows that are over my head. Biscuit, you need a grooming. Everything's falling apart around here. And if you're in the New England area, in Hartford today, there is the Family Pet Expo. And I was at that with my sister last year in Somerset, New Jersey. They don't have a really good setup for doing presentations, but I was in the main area and I had lots of people come to my talks about T-Touch and connecting with animals, and it was a really fun time. I think next year I might ask to go to the one in Hartford because it's only a 50-minute drive from here. How much better can it be? A fun pet expo in my backyard, and they're now allowing people to bring their pets. So if you're in the Hartford or Springfield area, you might want to shoot down from 10 to 5 to the Pet Expo, Family Pet Expo that is in Hartford. I'm forgetting which building it's in, but they're all right in the center of town there. So everybody have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine. It is warming up a tad. Thanks for joining us.